Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we're talking about the so-called Women's March again, a left-wing anti-Trump political activist group that hides behind the cause of caring about women, when really they don't. The Women's March only cares about women if they agree with liberal and progressive politics. Conservative women are not welcome in their group at all. None. Zippo. And if you're an anti-abortion, pro-life kind of woman, then don't even try showing up to a Women's March event either. So, with that said, the truth about this group is clear. They are just another SJW-pushing left-wing Gestapo group, out to try and resist Trump every chance they can get. And the failings of this group come from the top down too. Its leadership is horrible, one of its leaders being the wildly out of control anti-white racist Linda Sarsour, or the cockroach as some of us call her. This Muslim activist is anti-American through and through. She's a terrible person who also supports other terrible people, which is part of the reason her group has been struggling a ton lately. They've been getting some bad press, and I'm going to tell you why. Recently, a number of high-profile celebrities have denounced the Women's March. Former supporters and public ambassadors like Alyssa Milano have said they are done with the Women's March completely until they change things. And what triggered this might surprise some people. Linda Sarsour and other Women's March higher-ups have been meeting with and supporting Louise Farrakhan, the wildly out-of-control black activist and minister who calls Jews termites and thinks that Hitler was a good guy. That's right, this is the kind of person Sarsour and the March are associating with now. And it looks like Alyssa Milano and other actresses are going to quit this cause because of it. For more information on this mass exodus of supporters from the march, let's turn to an article from advocate.com called Deborah Messing Joins Alyssa Milano in Denouncing Women's March. Check this out. Will and Grace star Deborah Messing is the latest to speak out against the Women's March, and the fact that its leaders Tamika Mallory, Linda Sarsour, Carmen Perez, and Bob Bland refuse to distance themselves from vitriolic, anti-Semitic, homophobic, and transphobic Louise Farrakhan. Thursday night, Messing tweeted out an article from The Advocate in which Me Too activist Alyssa Milano said she would not speak at the next Women's March as long as its leaders refuse to condemn Nation of Islam leader Farrakhan's anti-Semitism, with her tweet supporting Milano below it, as you can see. And this is just beyond messed up. How ironic is it that a supposedly progressive social justice warrior group is being led by anti-Semites? These Muslims are Jew haters, obviously, clearly. They're not even trying to hide it. Farrakhan is a Nation of Islam leader, after all, who says Hitler wasn't a bad guy, which shouldn't be too surprising since Hitler did meet with and gain a lot of support from many Muslim leaders in his time too. The Nazis and Muslims do have a common enemy after all, the Jews. But this isn't the 1930s or 40s anymore. Open and overt racism is dated, but leave it to the Democrats to always surprise us. I'm glad to see some of Hollywood is coming out against this though. Didn't expect to be giving Alyssa Milano props today, but hey, I'll give credit where credit's due. She is right to take this stand on the Women's March. Every woman who's involved with that group should be considering this too. Take it in, ladies. The leaders of the Women's March hate Jews. And now that you know this, do you really want to continue to stand with the Women's March and their side? The side of anti-Semitism? Or do you want to join the rest of us in 2018, current year, where racism just isn't cool anymore? This kind of hatred clearly should be frowned upon, but it looks like the Women's March is promoting it. Funny enough, the Women's March leadership aren't the only ones supporting Louise Farrakhan either. Twitter seems to like having the guy around too. In fact, Twitter likes him so much, Farrakhan was verified up until just recently. He had a blue checkmark, and his anti-Jewish tweets had the Twitter verification checkmark too. Here's a great tweet by someone calling out Farrakhan, named James Hassan, who details how there are also 7 Democrats in Congress who, along with the Women's March leaders, all associate with and support Farrakhan, who's had great tweets saying real gems like this. I want to disabuse the Jews today of the false claim that you are the chosen of God. Or how about this one? The proof lessons from Jewish influence on world affairs. Wow. And that's only the beginning. We could spend hours pouring through this guy's racist tweets, but we do need to get back to the Women's March story. The last thing I'll say before we do, though, is this. I've seen people banned on Twitter for far less than this. If you're on the other side of the aisle at all, any conservative leanings whatsoever, and boom, Twitter will just delete you without warning. But if you're a known Democrat who supports progressive politics like Farrakhan and the Women's March, I guess Twitter will let you have a heyday with it. Anytime that there's any bigotry or anti-Semitism in that respect, it needs to be called out and addressed. I'm disappointed in the leadership of the Women's March that they haven't done it adequately. Milano told The Advocate last week when asked if she would speak at the next Women's March. Given leaders Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour's association with a man who warrants his own page from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which monitors hate groups, I would say no at this point. Unfortunate that none of them have come forward against him at this point, or even given a really good answer why to support him. Farrakhan's hatreds of Jewish and LGBTQ people is well documented. Farrakhan is an admirer of Adolf Hitler, having called the genocidal dictator a great man. In a 2006 speech, Farrakhan said, "It's the wicked Jews, the false Jews, that are promoting lesbianism, homosexuality." In 1996, he told a Kansas City crowd, "God don't like men coming to to men with lust in their hearts like you should go to a female. If you think that the kingdom of God is going to be filled up with that kind of degenerate crap, you're out of your goddamn mind. Just a week before the shooting in a Pittsburgh synagogue, Farrakhan tweeted out a speech in which he announced, "I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm an anti-termite." The Southern Poverty Law Center has condemned the Nation of Islam as an anti-Semitic and anti-LGBTQ hate group. Well, now, wait a second. I wouldn't necessarily cite the Southern Poverty Law Center as proof this guy is terrible. That group has just as many snakes in it as the Women's March, but they are right about Louis Farrakhan. And to think people have called me an anti-Semite just for making jokes and goofing on the Jews from time to time. Yet, the same kinds of loser SJWs are turning the other way when Farrakhan is being overtly anti-Jewish. Simply pathetic. And I have to say bravo to Alyssa Milano. Again, we sure have our differences about a lot of things, but over time, Milano does seem like she could be one of the more sane, rational liberals out there. And this reminds me of another story from last week. Milano joined forces with James Woods on Twitter in order to help spread the word and support the Southern California communities as they face some of the biggest and most dangerous wildfires ever seen. And James Woods, of course, is a pretty stark conservative who's very vocal about it on Twitter. And Milano and Woods have certainly exchanged unkind words over their differing political opinions over the years, but last week, in light of the wildfire emergency, the two joined forces anyway, putting political differences aside in order to help each other and everyone else who got caught up in this ordeal. So I think between this and this Women's March stuff, I would have to say Alyssa Milano could be one of us. Not a Republican or conservative or anything, but just another sane person who can have civil disagreements, while not totally hating everyone they disagree with either. I know I always try to do that myself, and it's good to see that there's other prominent influencers out there who feel the same way. Women's March co-president Tamika Mallory sat in the audience while Farrakhan gave a hateful speech in March in which he said, "The powerful Jews are my enemy." She also received a shout out from him and posted about the event on social media. Mallory has posted pictures with Farrakhan on Instagram with captions such as, "Thank God this man is still alive and doing well. He is definitely the GOAT, greatest of all time. Happy birthday, Louis Farrakhan." Sarsour strongly defended Mallory against accusations of being complicit in bigotry. "I don't think these people have our best interest at heart to make us better or to disrupt misconceptions or anti-Semitism, because trashing a strong black woman and holding her accountable for the words of a man is not the way to bring people together," she said, which is utter bullshit. When criticized about her relationship with Farrakhan, Mallory refused to directly condemn his words or his history of hatred. Instead, she tweeted what many perceived as dog whistles that targeted LGBTQ people and Jews as enemies of Jesus. And then there's the Tamika tweet right below this. And I have to say, it sounds like we've got a crazy church lady on our hands here. These are the types of people who focus on the Bible too much, and they interpret it the way they already think anyway. This anti-Jewish, anti-gay tear Tamika is on, well, she claims it comes from the Bible, when really it just comes from her and her evil, bigoted, 3 sizes too small heart. I mean, even if that stuff was in the Bible, it wouldn't be right either. That book is thousands of years old, so needless to say, I don't think we should be taking its advice all the way through in 2018, especially if your interpretation involves anti-Semitism and hating on gay people. Talk about regressive. Jeez. I hate to say it again here and sound like a virtue signaling SJW, but goddamn, I feel like I have to say it. Racism is wrong. Anti-Semitism and homophobia are wrong too. And it's no wonder people are dropping from the Women's March movement like flies. That shit is corrupt. All the way up until the top. Alyssa Milano and now Deborah Messing, these actresses did the right thing here. Anyone with common sense should be distancing themselves from the Women's March right now. Certainly if you're Jewish, like Deborah Messing. Or if you have Jewish friends, or, you know, you just don't hate people based on the ramblings of an elderly, unhinged, bigoted man like Louis Farrakhan. The Nation of Islam, which he leads, they're also virtually a domestic terrorist organization, so there's also that too. The Women's March leaders, Sarsour and Tamika Mallory, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed they were caught supporting this monster. Funny how they're the ones attacking Trump and calling him racist and sexist and homophobic, even though there's zero evidence any of that's true, and he's never even said anything close to it. Meanwhile, these same losers are openly supporting someone who has said racist things, and who has been anti-Semitic and bigoted openly and in the public, and he's proud about it. Shit, Farrakhan's Twitter just now posted a video of him doing a live speech in Tehran this week. That's right, this guy's being propped up and supported by Muslim warlords and dictators. And I guess the Women's March wants to be part of that deplorable group. What do you guys think? Was it right for those actresses to denounce the Women's March? Should the Women's March leaders be supporting Louis Farrakhan? And how come Farrakhan can keep his Twitter account and get away with saying all this racist shit day after day? Is it because he's liberal or because he's black? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and make sure you check out our updated links in the description below this video. I've got my Twitter, Facebook, and other social media down there, and some support links like Patreon or PayPal. And you can also check out some playlists to get caught up on some of our older, awesome videos. Thanks again for watching today, and we'll see y'all next time.
that we can stand before you today as Muslims. As our fathers, when they were brought out of Africa, many of them were already Muslims.